the harsh winter of September 1941, the city of Leningrad, known today as St. Petersburg, found itself at the heart of one of World War II's most tragic and heroic chapters. This is the story of the 900-day siege and unimaginable struggle for survival, a testament to profound sacrifice and a celebration of the unbreakable human spirit. Just 3 months earlier, in June 1941, Nazi Germany had launched Operation Barbarossa, a massive invasion of the Soviet Union. Leningrad, a major industrial powerhouse and the symbolic cradle of the revolution, was a prime target. By September 8th, German forces, with support from Finnish troops to the north, had completely encircled the city. Every land route was cut. Hitler, as orders were simple and utterly brutal, starved the city into submission until it ceased to exist. With that, Leningrad was officially sealed off. No food could get in, no supplies could reach its people, and there was no escape. Why Leningrad? Why this city? The reasons were both strategic and symbolic. It was the birthplace of the Bolshevik Revolution, a city deeply woven into the fabric of Soviet identity. It was also one of the country's largest industrial centers, churning out tanks, artillery, and vital military hardware. As a port city, it controlled access to the Baltic Sea and the Northern Territories. Capturing Leningrad would not only be a massive military victory, but it would also shatter Soviet morale and cripple its war machine. Hitler was convinced that by destroying Leningrad, he could break the will of the entire Soviet Union. The winter of 1941 arrived early and with a vengeance. Food rations were slashed again and again, eventually plummeting to a mere 125 grams of bread per person per day. And this wasn't ordinary bread. It was often mixed with sawdust, cellulose, and anything else that could add bulk. As the food disappeared, the city froze. Temperatures plunged to a brutal minus 30 degrees Celsius, or minus 22 Fahrenheit. The power grid failed. Water pipes froze solid. Heat became a distant memory. People burned their furniture, their books, anything they could find, just to stay warm for a few more hours. The once bustling streets grew silent, except for the haunting sound of air raid sirens and distant artillery. People began to collapse. From starvation and cold, their bodies left where they fell. The final death toll is staggering. Over 1 million civilians perished, the vast majority from hunger, freezing, and relentless shelling. It remains one of the deadliest and most brutal sieges in all of human history. But in the face of this unimaginable horror, the city of Leningrad refused to surrender. Its people refused to break. Across the vast, frozen expanse of Lake Ladoga to the east, a lifeline was born out of sheer desperation and courage. It became known as the Road of Life. Throughout the unforgiving winter nights, convoys of trucks dared to drive across the treacherous ice. They brought in life-saving supplies, sacks of flour, barrels of fuel, and precious medicine. On the return journey, they evacuated hundreds of thousands of civilians, mostly women, children, and the elderly. The route was a constant gamble with death. The ice was thin in places, and German artillery and aircraft relentlessly targeted the convoys, sending trucks and their drivers plunging into the freezing water below. Yet, the drivers kept coming. Every sack of flour, every person saved, was a victory against death. The Road of Life didn't just bring supplies, it brought hope. It was a fragile thread that kept the city tethered to the world, a symbol that they had not been forgotten. Even as the city starved, its spirit endured. This resilience was found in the most unexpected places. In the frozen, unheated factories, workers, themselves weak from hunger, continued to produce and repair tanks and weapons for the front lines. They worked until they collapsed, driven by a fierce determination to defend their home. In the basements and bomb shelters that served as makeshift classrooms, teachers continued to educate the city's children, determined to preserve a sense of normalcy and a future beyond the war. The city's libraries, incredibly, stayed open, offering a sanctuary of knowledge and escape. Perhaps the most powerful symbol of this defiance occurred in the summer of 1942. In a city of starving ghosts, an orchestra was assembled. The musicians were emaciated, some so weak they had to be carried to the concert hall, but they gathered to perform Dmitri Shostakovich's brand new 7th Symphony, a piece he had begun composing during the first weeks of the siege. The performance was broadcast by loudspeakers all across the city, a thunderous roar of defiance against the enemy just miles away. It was a powerful declaration that even amid starvation and death, culture, art, and the human spirit were still alive. This This incredible act of courage resonated far beyond the city, becoming a global symbol of Soviet resistance. Finally, after 872 days of suffering, the end came. On January 27, 1944, the Soviet army launched a massive counteroffensive, smashing through the German lines and permanently breaking the blockade. Leningrad was free. The city erupted in celebration. But it was a victory steeped in sorrow. The streets were filled with people, but the faces of a million were missing. The city was saved, but it was forever changed, scarred by the memory of what its people had endured. The siege of Leningrad was more than a military battle. It was a battle for existence itself. It was a story of endurance against impossible odds, of faith in the face of absolute despair, and of the unyielding will to live. From the depths of unimaginable loss and suffering rose a story of unity, courage, and an unbreakable spirit. It serves as a permanent, harrowing reminder that even in the darkest hours of war, humanity will fight to survive, and the light of the human spirit can never be fully extinguished. Thank you for watching. If you found this story meaningful, please like this video and subscribe for more chapters from history.